Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest. And for those of you who have been on my stream before, we've talked about Dragon Quest multiple times, kind of my thoughts around it. I have covered Dragon Quest content in the past, and with the upcoming WoTV Dragon Quest collaboration, a lot of people are wondering why I'm not planning on covering it. So once again, I just plan on talking about the reason why, what kind of my thought processes is, why I boycott Dragon Quest for content on my channel. So let's go ahead and dig in. So a lot of this information is pretty easily grabbable. Most of it you can find from Kuichi Sugiyama's Wikipedia page, actually. It has all the sources to news articles, what was said, what wasn't said. And my biggest problem with covering Dragon Quest on my channel does have to do with Kuichi Sugiyama, who, if you're not familiar, is basically the Nobuo Uematsu of Dragon Quest. He's the basically pinnacle of all Dragon Quest music, and he's a very outspoken person. He is currently dead right now. He did pass away relatively recently, and that's actually what got my attention, because I never knew before how outspoken he was, the kind of extremist politics that he followed. And that really kind of drew my eye to Dragon Quest and made me reassess why I cover it or why I won't cover it on my channel. So he has made various statements, various statements that people may not agree with over a variety of issues. Most notably, particularly if you're just looking him up, there's comments about a very famous massacre and comfort women and like papers that he signed that for me really have no meaning. But what does have meaning to me is LGBT community content laws. All of these things are applicable to not only me, but to my viewers as well. And as someone who wants to represent and support people from LGBT communities across the world, it's just something that I can't support. Specifically, the comments that he's made are mostly from a television show, and they're mostly focused around his concerns that LGBT people won't be having children, which is basically a concern that I think a lot of Japanese politicians do have in terms of being able to bring in the younger generation, but also his agreement with other politicians around the idea of basically LGBT suicides not really mattering, LGBT rights not necessarily not mattering, but that they don't deserve to really be covered or talked about. If you go to his website, he does very specifically say that he does believe marginalized communities like LGBT do need to be talked about. But of course, what's on his website versus what he's been caught saying on Japanese television and otherwise is, of course, a little bit different. Now, we are in a world right now where cancel culture is rampant, and it can be very easy to, take one thing someone said out of context and just like roll with it. And I understand that, and this is definitely not a cancel culture situation. This is a personal belief situation. This is me looking at the behavior of someone who I would imagine is a public figure. I think about if Nobuo Uematsu, right, went out and made comments like that right now, the outrage in the Final Fantasy community would be widespread. There would be huge, groundbreaking shifts in both sales, in executions, etc., etc. And instead, we got a very lukewarm response from Square Enix around this, which basically said, they're not going to say they're not going to work with him anymore. They're going to continue to use his music, but that his views don't necessarily reflect on the company. And of course, that's a very PR response. But especially in the era that we live in nowadays, this was about 5 years ago, I would have expected more to be done. And even as we transition to more focus on LGBT rights and it becomes more acceptable across the world, I do think it's important that we hold franchises accountable, or that we hold companies accountable for their behavior in either supporting these types of people or otherwise. And while I do love Square Enix and I love Final Fantasy and I love the entire franchise, and while I have enjoyed the Dragon Quest games in the past, the active anti-LGBTQ sentiment from Kuichi Sugiyama, as well as the tepid response from Square Enix, has definitely left a very bad taste in my mouth for Dragon Quest, and it hasn't really been settled since then. So I'm not going to be the person who's going to go out there and say, screw Dragon Quest, right? It's super anti-LGBT, because I don't think it is. I think it's very much, one person speaking out, but that one person speaking out has spoiled the game for me. It's spoiled the Dragon Quest franchise, and things might have been different if Square Enix had reacted in a different way. I might not feel that way, but currently with Dragon Quest, that is how I feel. And I have covered Dragon Quest on the channel before I knew all of this. It was a franchise I enjoyed, and ever since then, it's just one of those franchises that I just don't want to engage with it. I just don't want to have it on my channel anymore. I don't want to support a franchise that continues to use the music of an anti-LGBT advocate. It's just not something I really want to do. So that being said, that's mainly the reason I don't plan on covering Dragon Quest or the WoTV Dragon Quest collaboration on my channel. That being said, maybe things will change in the future. Maybe Square Enix will come out and maybe do something more empowering or more, welcoming to the LGBTQ community that maybe bypasses this, or maybe they'll choose not to use his music in future works. But as it stands right now, his music is still going forward into the other games, and that's just not something I can really support. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. As always, you can leave a comment down below. This isn't a call to burn Square Enix to the ground or anything like that. This is just my feelings, explaining to you why I don't plan on covering Dragon Quest content that's going to be coming out here in the near future. Thank you so much, everybody, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.